Welcome in. We've made it yet again, and you guys are going to need us this week. 6 teams are on bye. That includes all your Bills, all your Bears, all your Giants, Raiders, Ravens, and the team playing tonight, the Vikings. Well, I guess the Bears are also playing. So 2 of the teams tonight, you're losing. So if you have anybody going tonight, you're probably going to need our help.
No, you were right. A team playing tonight plus the Bears.
and
had it right.
And 5 teams on bye, and then the Giant and Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
So
Hyatt looked okay.
Not wrong.
Yeah, he did. He did look okay. I'll give him that. But yeah, it's that team, man, that game set offenses back 20 years at least. Giants, Patriots, that is.
Yeah, it's not ideal. I'm surprised they won. I guess I shouldn't be, but that was the biggest.
Patriots are just that bad this season.
So there's a chance for us next week, Mike.
It's geez, we'll see. It's like Mac Jones throws interceptions.
It's going to come down to a last-second field goal. So we'll see what happens.
Probably, yeah. But
one way or the other.
When he throws interceptions, Mac Jones, it's like, man, that's how I imagine I would look if I were out there, like against an NFL team, just like throwing the ball up and praying and just, yeah, it's bad. Well, I'm scared for the Chargers next week. I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and we still have Staley, which he survived. I mean, Frank Wright did not. He neither did their quarterback coach or their OC. All got the shaft, I believe, and
who's the
interim head coach is a special teams. So
no, the OC stayed. It was Deuce Staley, the running back coach, that got let go.
That's so random.
Yep.
Of all the issues that they have, they're okay with their offense. Okay. Well, I don't.
Like the story I was reading about that too, because I went down a rabbit hole on it because it was so weird. So their offensive coordinator was calling the plays through the entire first half of the season, and then Reich took over the play calling, and apparently Dave Tepper, the team owner, did not like that, and fired Reich because he wanted the OC to go back to calling the plays on offense. So that's what's going to happen now. Is the special teams coordinator is the coach, and the OC is calling the plays. What a hot mess.
If you're firing, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, that's what I was saying in our Discord. If you're interviewing for that job, knowing that the previous guy couldn't do anything and got fired halfway through the first year, and you have no first round pick, you have no money. Why do you want to go to that job unless you're just desperate for a head coaching job?
Yeah.
And checking for a payday.
It's something much bigger than the head coach when you're firing 2 years in a row someone in the middle of the season. So yeah, it's crazy, man. Who's going to want to go there for sure? I think there was an article in Carolina Observer that said this, they've got, since Dave Tepper bought the team in 2018, since the interim coach more than likely isn't going to get the full-time job, that'll be the 7th head coach hire in the less than 6 years that he's owned the franchise. Jeez, that's terrible.
That's pretty horrible. Yeah.
If you're not winning, you're not really trying, right?
But how do you rebuild when there's never any consistency in head coach, in offense, in system that you're running? You're expecting it to be an instantaneous turnaround, and that's just not how the NFL works.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, my understanding is that Reich wanted Stroud anyway, so that's fun.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that's man. And you're gonna have, and you traded away your number 1 pick. That's potentially going to be Caleb Williams. It's just a complete disaster. Oof.
Yeah, not the brightest choices, but they gave away more and got the first round pick this year, right? That's what they were wanting. They got Bryce Young, passing on CJ Stroud. Hindsight's 2020. Wish the Panthers had more of it, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
But all right, we started talking about exclusives here. Who has more upside tonight, Addison or Chandler?
I mean, it's got to be Addison, right?
Yeah. My thing is, the Bears have a decent run defense. It seems their weakness seems to be a passing game. So, who actually knows? If I'm assuming Chandler still has that job, but it'll be curious to see how that actually ends up splitting up between Chandler and Madison. So, I'd much rather go with the guy who'll be on the field and has that big playability and touchdown upside.
Yeah, Chandler, even though he had a good game last week, I think better than Madison. 31% of the snaps last week, and 30 of his yards or so were on that fake punt return, or fake punt. So, yeah, definitely Addison. It has more upside at least. I wouldn't be surprised if Chandler does better, but if you need 20 points, you got to go Addison.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I guess along that same line, we're going to talk about quarterbacks, but of the two quarterbacks playing tonight, do you have a preference on who is more likely to have that bigger day?
Man, that's a good question. I'm gonna say Fields. I think both of them could be 20-point guys, though, just because they're running floors. So I'm gonna lean Fields. I just think overall the passing and the rushing, I think he's just a little bit more talented. Obviously he is, but so yeah, I'll lean Fields, but I wouldn't be surprised if both of them have 20+ points. What about you? Who do you have a preference?
I mean, I lean Dobbs because, again, I like his weapons a little more. I think that really boosts it up. Addison, I feel like, has a bigger play potential. He is using a holy bejesus out of Hawkinson. Powell even is showing up, then the two running backs. They still don't know what they're doing at running back when it comes to the Bears. So that's another big old mess. I'm assuming that Herbert was just being eased in last week, but who actually knows? But figured I'd ask because I'm curious. I'm rolling out Dobbs. I set Trevor Lawrence for him again this week, so we'll see if that ends up biting me or not. I should be able to cruise. So thankfully. So
yeah, I know we're going to jump into the waiver wires and quarterbacks real quick. I did a very quick, like 15 minutes ago, kind of guys picked up maybe potentially on the waiver wire week 13 last year, or later, Brock Purdy, Jerick McKinnon, Cam Akers, potentially Osborne, Isaiah Hodgins. 2 years ago, we had like St. Brown, Sony Michel had a good second, last 5 weeks, Russell Gage. Like these are, guys that were potentially winning you championships that were picked up week 12, 13, 14. So I know if you're going to make the playoffs or on the fringe, there's still, who knows, this one move, could kind of push you over the top. So don't give up. That's the message.
Yeah. I mean, especially with the potential at this point, people are wearing down. There's people are wanting to see what they have. I mean, that's what's happened with Brock. Michelle got a lot of usage because he had a running back injury in front of him, which we saw Kyron comebacks and absolutely exploded again as expected. That was a heck of a game for him. It's a great matchup. So with him coming back, I think it also helps a lot. And if he was dropped, hopefully you grabbed him. I doubt he was because a lot of people were just holding him through and had IR slot, but definitely a good pickup from earlier in the year. All right. We'll get to where people want to go. Streaming quarterbacks this week. And no surprise, bringing up Gardner Minshew again, 7.3% rostered. Gets the Titans. His first game, it actually split between him and Anthony Richardson. Well, Richardson got hurt in that game. So Minshew came in, was able to put up 6.3 fantasy points in a half. Not too shabby. Just played the Buccaneers. Didn't throw a touchdown. Rushed a touchdown in, but threw for 251 yards and had one interception, 14.64 fantasy points. If you had another touchdown on there, it's a pretty solid day for him. He's likely top 12 at that point. So really was able to use Taylor. I thought they would use him more in the passing game, which is part of the reason I had Minshew up in that top. I think I had him at 14. But again, it's one of those things that he has a lot of talent around him. It's super impressive. Downs looked good with his, limited usage. Like I said, they were running a lot. So it's very curious to see how that ends up going. But that's who I've leaned in. You have some good options here. So tell me about them.
Yep. Put a few down here. Jordan Love under that 50%. Yeah. Tough versus Kansas City that's the biggest problem is it's Kansas City, right? And they're obviously a good defense. So maybe this is, there's still teams on bye in week 14, potential. Again, if you're kind of like I am on a lot of my teams, I'm kind of using 2 quarterbacks and going based on matchups. If you need Love at any point, week 14, 15, 16, 17, this is the week you have to pick him up because someone's going to pick him up after his big performance. So he's QB9 on the year, 3 straight games of 18 points and 4 point per passing touchdown, and back-to-back 20-point games. I think he had 30 points in this last week. And after week 13, he gets Giants and Bucks the next 2 weeks. So those are pretty good matchups after that. So Love versus Kansas City is tough, but, Love in week 14 and beyond, I like that move for sure. Derek Carr, he's always on this list. I know he had a tough week in week 12, but he did throw for 300 yards. Problem is maybe a lot of his weapons got hurt in the game, and they could be out this week. We don't know yet, and that's definitely going to downgrade him if he's throwing to like A.T. Perry and I forget the name of the other receiver that came in, but someone that's not really on my radar, and that should be pretty telling. So hopefully he can get Shaheed back. I don't know if Olave is going to make it, but he plays the Lions in week 13. They're a top 7 team, 4 quarterbacks, giving up points to quarterbacks. And they've given up 20 points to quarterbacks 7 times this year. And that's not even including a 19.5-point week. So if you include that, it's 8 times. You do the math. We've only been, they've already had their bye, I'm pretty sure. So it's been 8 of their 11 games. They're giving up some pretty big points. And so I actually like Derek Carr this week if he can get at least one of his weapons back and hopefully a couple of them.
Yeah, I actually like Derek Carr the rest of the season. This is a great pickup if he's available because he does have some really juicy matchups the rest of the season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, he is definitely one of the better schedules. And then I added him late. I wasn't sure of his roster percentage. I'm sure it's over 50% in the ESPN leagues because of the name value of Russell Wilson. But maybe if you play in, other platforms or something, Russell Wilson's out there. He's running more and he's putting up some good weeks for sure. So I don't mind Russell Wilson picking him up if you need a start. I forget who the Broncos. They play the Texans, so that could be a good game for Russell Wilson. Texans, Chargers, Lions next 3 weeks. I like that definitely for Russell Wilson.
Yeah, it's definitely worth a peek at least. He's becoming. Neil and I continue to talk about it on Thursdays, but he is a game manager in pretty much all forms of it. Their plan to let him do whatever he wanted didn't work out, so now they're doing it Peyton's way, and it's working. They're on a nice win streak. Their defense is really stepping up, so it's making games manageable, and he's throwing touchdowns. So all is beneficial. So
you'd have to be desperate, but what about Kenny Pickett against Arizona?
It could be worse, I guess. With them getting rid of their OC, it seems to be working.
It's tough because I hate judging anything off of in division games because they're so inconsistent with everything else that you do. But
Pat Freiermuth not going for over 100 yards wasn't on your bingo card.
278 passing yards against Cincinnati is pretty decent. But still has not thrown a touchdown since he threw the touchdown finally to Deontay Johnson against Tennessee in week 9. So, yeah, it's not great. Like I said, you'd have to be desperate, but Arizona gives up the second most points to quarterbacks this season.
The only issue is I really see them gouging him again with Harris and Warren.
Right.
That's part of it too. Is Tomlin's just a genius when it comes to using the running backs, and both of them are just ripping off runs and destroying people.
Yeah. I also, again, mention him all the time, like Baker. I still don't mind Baker. He had a touchdown tackled at the once again with Mike Evans, and he would have had, I think, over 20 points if he got that touchdown. And the problem is he's playing the Panthers, and Panthers are like the Texans last year, where everyone just runs all over them, so they don't have good games. But they've also played Desmond Ridder, Derek Carr, Minshew, Bagents. They've had some not so great quarterbacks in there, like good, maybe not great, but it's just hard to know with the Panthers. Like, is it because they have a good pass defense, or is it just because everyone runs on them?
Yeah, it's really hard to tell. All right, we're gonna move out of quarterback and move into running back. Again, name we're bringing up, and absolutely annoys me. Keaton Mitchell, 33.6% rostered. This is his week of just dominating snaps for that team. Was on the field for 46% of plays. Hill came at 28.2, and Edwards came at 26.7. He definitely looks like the best running back on the team, but he isn't getting the high quality touches. That's actually going to Hill and Edwards. They're using him in early downs, but in games that they are dominating, he's getting the runs. Past 3 weeks versus the Browns, 13.6 fantasy points. Got a touchdown there. Versus the Bengals, 5.1 fantasy points. Had no big plays. And then versus Chargers, he had 2 pretty big runs that really helped him out to 10.9 fantasy points. So not the most ideal situation, but he is leading them in snaps at the running back position. I think that's really due to game script, and based on matchups, it could continue to be a big explosive guy for him, and they seem to like him. So, but the name I'm interested in is the first one I see here, and I'm curious if that's where you're going to start, if you're going to jump around on your list.
Yeah, I'll start with him. It's Chuba Hubbard. This is a tough one, but he had a big game. He dominated, well, not dominated, but 47 snaps to Miles Sanders' 27. So he was definitely the lead guy, over 60%, I believe. And he had the goal line work, the 2-minute drill, the third down snaps. He had all the value snaps, 20 points in week 12. The issue is we just talked about all the changes. Now it's not an offensive coordinator change, but running back coach is gone. Are they going to want to? Is the owner going to say, hey, I paid Miles Sanders this much money, you need to use him? So we don't know what this whole offense is going to look like, if it's going to be the same. But Hubbard has looked better than Sanders this year. And that's not saying much, because Hubbard hasn't necessarily looked amazing. But there's a potential that, he is the main guy, and Sanders is just kind of the between the 20s type of guy, or change, every third drive type of guy. So I would definitely pick up Hubbard. He could be one of these guys we mentioned at the top of the show, the Jerick McKinnons or Cam Akers of 2023, where they just like, holy crap, Chuba Hubbard, average 15 points a game or 17 points a game the last 4 weeks. So definitely don't want to leave him on the waiver wire. I don't know how you feel about what's going to happen there.
I agree, because I have been rostering him pretty much since Sanders week 1, and he was already getting injured. I'm like, okay, I'm going to need him at least for a handcuff at the very least. Benched him this week because I thought, I had a couple other players, and that split still makes me a little nervous. But I mean, if he's getting that passing work, that's going to be a big part of it. If he continues to have to be the safety blanket for Young, which they should be doing anyway, they should be passing to him a lot, which you saw this past week, but really needs to be the change. If they start doing that more often, I'm completely on board with riding Hubbard to a championship. That's for sure.
Yeah. So, definitely just he's out there. Ty Chandler, we talked about it tonight. Maybe throw him on your roster, see what he does if they want to use him more. He does look a little more explosive than Madison, but there's a reason why they're still using Madison. So Jeff Wilson is, I think Achan's going to be back this week. It sounded like he could have maybe played this last week, but it was a short week type of situation. So I'm not sure exactly how I feel about Jeff Wilson, but if he misses, this could be it's like total speculation and game script. But with all the bye weeks, they're playing Washington. What if they start blowing him out and they start putting Jeff Wilson in there and he has a big game just because they're blowing out the Commanders in the fourth quarter or something. So,
well, the thing that I like about Jeff Wilson is Mike McDaniel saying that he's the people's champ. Like, he came in. He hasn't really been healthy. This was the first week that he even kind of looked healthy, and he looked really good out there, especially in the passing game, which kind of just eliminated Mostert's portion of that completely. And that I'm very curious to see how this is going to end up splitting for the rest of the season, because that gave me a lot of hope. Because again, Wilson's been hurt. That's the guy that I was really high on coming into the season. Of course, we haven't seen him for most of it. And now is his opportunity. The end of last year, he looked like he was really taking over the backfield, and Mostert was kind of a second fiddle. It'd be very interesting to see if that he becomes a second fiddle to Achane, or if Mostert's still going to be that guy. I'm very curious to see how that ends up kind of breaking down. This could definitely be the one that I'm kind of putting a pin in as a potential McKinnon type player.
Yeah, it's somebody that I definitely like to roster going forward. Just a lottery ticket, basically, like you're saying. This week, I think, is a great example because Achane was hurt, right? So you had Jeff Wilson, who still had 11 carries for 56 yards. He was making the most of his time on the field. And Mostert had... I had the stat because I bet the over on his yards for the day, but it was like 40. He had like 48 yards through 3.5 quarters, and then he had 46 yards on the last drive, so just to completely blow it out of the water. But even then, they were winning the game comfortably, and they put in Darrington Evans for a drive, and he fumbles the ball away, which is why you don't put Darrington Evans in the game. But it just shows you that they love to use 3 running backs, even when it's not a guy that's high profile. So I think as long as Wilson is healthy and can be active, he's going to get at least a few touches. And we've seen from him that he can make the most of it when he gets the ball in his hands.
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of the reason the 49ers loved him so much, is because when he came in, it was just a firecracker. He could easily... We're seeing it with Keaton Mitchell now. And I mean, really every 49er running back that is on that team is just so explosive when they actually give it to him. It's crazy how they continue to pick winners. And so no surprise that McDaniel was like, yeah, I'll take him. Sure. Let's take all these guys. We'll figure it out and we'll find another fast guy to add back there. So
yeah, Jeff Wilson played 33% of the snaps in that game and finished this week as RB26 going into Monday Night Football. So, I mean, if that ever got up over 40% even, he'd arguably be an RB2. So that's just the offense. That's just the volume that you get with them.
Yeah, 100%. And then, these last guys we can, again, it's the handcuffs we've always been talking about. I mean, Zach Moss is interesting because we saw his snap share go up again to 40%, but he could have been dropped. He's right around that 50% mark in ESPN league. So, Zach Moss, Tajay Spears, Gainwell, Zamir White, Rico Dowdle, Dearness Johnson seems to be the guy in Jacksonville now. And actually, Travis Etienne did have like a weird injury that he kind of played. He came back, and I think it was the second quarter he didn't play too much. The third quarter he dominated snaps, and then like the fourth quarter he didn't play as much, even though they were in a close game. So just keep an eye on that. He could pop up on the injury report, and you could have a good play in Dearness Johnson maybe for a week. So he's one I'm definitely preemptively picking up potentially before we get injury reports coming in. So.
Yeah, even then, I mean, this was somebody we talked about again in the offseason in our 32 teams, was the fact that when you're looking at the handcuffs, I thought he for sure could actually even step into a role that he dominated and been almost a direct split with Etienne. And now you're finally starting to see that as he can do everything that Etienne can, just a slight downgrade from it. I mean, he's been a backup for such a long time and has good hands, can easily carry that load. And if they really decide that they want to try and make a run at it, I think splitting with Etienne and Johnson could be a right move to kind of keep all their players healthy.
Yeah, because especially with that win against Houston, they are 2 games up now with 6 to go. So they're looking pretty comfortable. So it's like, yeah, we're at this point now. Let's start thinking about the playoffs, like obviously they still want to win every game. They can get the number 1 seed still. And, but yeah, so Giannis could be definitely a guy to pay attention to.
All right. We'll get out of running backs, move into wide receivers, because again, I'm going to talk about the 2 names that are driving me nuts. Don't know why they're not over 50% rostered. And Josh Downs, who is 47.2%, getting there. We're so close. And then Demario Douglas, 32.1%. Okay, we'll start with Downs. We know he came off the bye, had the injury, all this horrible stuff. This week he looked good. He saw a bunch of targets, even though he was the 3rd on routes run. They were clearly easing him back in, or snap percentage. Like, he isn't even running that many snaps, but he is literally getting targeted the most on the team. It's insane. And so with that in mind, rest of season, he has a great schedule. I'm literally love everybody he faces the rest of the season when it comes to the passing schedule for them. Big benefit for him. And like I said, this past week, 9.3 fantasy points. But he saw, I think it was 12 or 13 targets, which is just insane. And then Demario Douglas, who, if you need a 10, this is your guy in PPR. Like, in the next 2 weeks, he gets the Chargers and the Steelers. So, really good options. He's going to continue to see he led in targets again, and he is, again, not the guy dominating the snaps. And his few number of snaps, he's still seeing more targets than everybody else on the team. But week 9 versus Commanders, 10.5 fantasy points. Week 10 versus the Colts, 14.4 fantasy points. And week 11 versus the Giants, 10.9 fantasy points. Pretty sure all these, he didn't score a touchdown. So this is just in PPR, him getting targets and catching for yardage. Like, he actually
that is correct. He has not scored a touchdown this season.
So it's just mind-blowing that this guy is doing all this without even getting a touchdown, and adding that 6 or 7 points could make your week.
Yeah. Did he have an injury or leave the game? I thought potentially he left.
He did, but he came back.
Okay. He came back. No,
it is definitely something to keep an eye on, because you know how that can easily be. But I wanted to make sure people knew that he was still available, and it's driving me crazy.
Yeah. No, definitely he needs to be rostered. A guy we've mentioned over the last 2-3 weeks at least is Jaden Reed. He's at that point where you're going to see him jump up a lot. 5 or 6 games now since the bye week with double-digit points. And, they always talk about bye weeks, and they bring on the rookies a little bit more, and that's what's been happening with Jaden Reed. He has 14 targets over the last 2 weeks, 73% of the snaps last week, 5 carries over the last 2 weeks. So they want to get the ball in his hands. He's producing double-digit points at this point, especially 2 more weeks with some bye weeks is valuable, definitely. So don't know if he's ever going to be an alpha there. They just have an offense that spreads the ball around, but he seems like he's maybe the best receiver on that team. So definitely like Jaden Reed. Tough matchup with the Chiefs in week 13, but like we said with Jordan Love, Giants and Bucks, both top 10, give up the most points, or in the top 10 for giving up the most points to receivers. So
okay. Going to step in just for a second because of the fact that the Chiefs is a theoretical tough matchup, but they already have Dobbs and Watson playing. And I think they're still going to focus on them first. So you're going to have Snead and McDuffie both focusing on those two, and likely Ward will be on, not really on Reed, but Reed is going to have the most effective game still. His style of game, I think, is really proof against the Chiefs. So even with this quote-unquote tough matchup, I think this is a good one. That's part of the reason I was so high this past week on Jacoby Myers coming into the week, because I knew that they would really focus on taking away Adams. I'm guessing, again, they kind of saw what they could take away with Dobbs last week, and then Watson having the big game. I'm expecting them to kind of focus on Watson and try and take him away a little more than they will worry about Reed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a good point for sure. So either way, he needs to be, if you're going to start him or not this week, he needs to be rostered. Curtis Samuel is a tough one. Had another big game. This was like the first week since his injury. We saw him kind of get back to a normal snap share, I believe, and he had 19 points. It could be a possible shootout. Sam Howell is not afraid to throw the ball. We know that. So he's an interesting one, again, with this pretty tough bye week for receivers. Diggs, Moore's out, Devontae Adams, Flowers, Addison, Jefferson, all these guys out. Maybe Curtis Samuel is someone you can throw in there and hopefully get lucky. Josh Palmer is a guy that definitely needs to be rostered. I think he's eligible to return this week. The Chargers are obviously desperate for someone besides Keenan Allen to do anything. Quentin Johnston is just not ready or not good. Who knows? And he might be hurt anyways. And he averaged 13 points a game in PPR he had basically 3 weeks in which Mike Williams was hurt and he was the starter, and before he got hurt, and he averaged 13 points a game. So he's he might be my top potentially. I'd still go probably Downs and Douglas, but he's up there with all those guys in terms of who I want to start. And
if you're getting rid of stash, that's definitely the one, just in case, because if they don't activate him this week, the next week it's just another week of rest, and if he's back, he automatically goes into a starting role for him. So, and I would expect him to be competing with Douglas and Downs when it comes to just the target share. So,
yeah, definitely. I agree there. And the Browns guys, we don't know. Amari Cooper left the game, never came back. Elijah Moore, it would be the one I'd go after if I need to start, number one receiver on the Browns. I don't know how exciting that is, but with the quarterback situation. And Cedric Tillman is another rookie. That he's flashed the last couple of weeks, and so just keep an eye on, again, like if you're desperate this week, and Elijah Moore might not be a terrible choice of someone if Amari Cooper's out.
Yeah, I like that pick too. I definitely had a note on him because I was just like, this is liking to see his increase in usage, and like you said, Cooper potentially dealing with injury. It's going to be interesting to see how that ends up working out. So, all right, out of wide receiver, end of the position nobody cares about, tight ends. Kind of been mentioning it, but Pat Freiermuth had a big game. I think he's finally healthy. Last week saw almost a direct split with Darnell Washington, increased his snap this week to almost 60% of them, but was the target leader on the team. Had 11 targets, 9 receptions, 120 yards. I'm going to say he's healthy.
Yeah.
So this guy is one of the few that, 2 or 3 years ago, I really liked his style of play, really fit this team. He does it all. He's a down and dirty player. Really reminds me of George Kittle in that kind of facet. And if they are actually going to have to throw to him, this is definitely in the realm. He doesn't like to drop a whole lot of balls. So,
yeah, I mean, and again, you mentioned it. This is not out of nowhere. This is a guy that was drafted very highly in August when we were doing our fantasy drafts. Probably overdrafted, but
a little bit.
He has what was he, a top 7 tight end last year? So yeah, you can't let 120 yards from a tight end sit on the waiver wire for sure. Yeah, he's definitely the number one choice. Isaiah Likely, again, like 4 for 40, and overall down game for the I think he was the leading receiver for the Ravens with 40 yards. So just a down game for the whole offense against the Chargers, weirdly enough.
No idea how that worked out, man.
Yeah, I don't know. Doesn't make sense. But anyways, like if you have a slightly better offensive game, passing game, you could see that bump up 5 or 6 for 60 or something like that easily. And he actually looked pretty good in a couple of, he's kind of like a receiver as a tight end, in my opinion. So he was out there 75% of the time and on a good good offense. The only thing is they have a bye in week 13, so it's not obviously for this week. And Gerald Everett, like I was just trying to find someone. It's like at this point you're finding someone who can score me a touchdown, and that's not a bad option. Is the Chargers, because they do throw. Herbert throws a lot of touchdowns to tight ends, whether it's Parham or Everett or Stone Smart. Yeah, and again, like this team needs someone to step up, and if Palmer's not back, it could be Gerald Everett as the number 2 guy with Quentin Johnston either benched or hurt. I don't know. So
I'm just more upset because the last play that the Chargers had, I thought for sure, I'm like, this is Stone Smart play. He's going to be open right in the center of the field. They're going to pass rush. There's not going to be anybody on him. And I look at the play as it breaks down, and Herbert, if he just lets go of the ball and throws it right in the center, there is Stone Smart with the stone hands, just ready to catch it for a first down. Yep. And he just didn't get through the reads fast enough, and it's tough.
Yeah, it is tough indeed. But yeah, no, it's tough for tight ends this week too. So if you can get Freiermuth and you need a tight end, he's potentially the number 1 waiver wire pickup out of everyone, So,
or if you're just playing to block at this point, if you're trying to win because you're behind, blocking is perfectly allowable at this point, and that would be a good block. If you're like me, I lost Andrews and have been playing Laporta, but I plan on sniping him and just hopefully getting him on my bench to keep it from other people and maybe use him as trade bait, because I still have until Sunday to make trades. So we'll see if this works.
Yeah.
But
another thing is real quick is, these 6 teams on my, there's going to be, I don't know how it is for everyone's leagues, but across like all my leagues, it seems like teams like 3 to 10 and 12 team leagues, like they're all kind of right there. Could make the playoffs, could miss the playoffs. It's kind of a weird year this year. So I feel like those teams that are sitting right outside of the playoffs, with these teams that are going on bye, you could see players that probably shouldn't be dropped because they need to win this week. There's no other option. They can't. It's like, why am I holding this guy? He's not going to help me win this week. I have to win. So just trying to think of like Jacoby Myers or, a Gabe Davis from the Bills. Does he get dropped? Or even a guy like Addison, if knowing that Jefferson's going to come back, like, there could be some good players dropped from these teams. So always keep an eye on that. Definitely.
I got one for you. Another kind of, if you're desperate, I'll sticking in my same I love Baker Mayfield realm. Cade Otton. How about some Cade Otton? Yeah. He's been top 12 tight end 3 of the past 4 weeks. More importantly, since week 7, he is top 12 in tight end targets. So he's involved in the offense, and he's been doing it without finding the end zone. The one game where he actually caught a touchdown, he caught 2 of them against Houston, and he finished tight end 3 on the week. So he's putting up about 10 points per game right now in PPR. But yeah, minimum of 4 targets in every game except 1. Minimum of 30 yards in every game except 2 since week 7. So fairly consistent, not flashy at all, but will absolutely get the job done. Finishes the year with Carolina twice, Atlanta, Green Bay, New Orleans. Juicy matchups. So if you're looking to stream somebody, you're desperate to fill a void in a deep league maybe, I think Cade Otton's a decent choice.
I think he was tackled at the 1 as well. Then it went to Mike Evans after. So, yeah, he was almost a top 5 tight end probably with that touchdown.
Yeah. That's always the problem with the Tampa tight end is Mike Evans is basically their tight end in the end zone. So that's the only troubling part. But otherwise, he's getting the volume.
Yeah, it's a good one. That's one that Neil constantly tries to use as his start of the week every week, but last week he couldn't.
If I can rep Neil when he's not here, that's fine.
So, all right. Again, moving into defenses, kind of gonna throw it out there because they actually looked pretty good this past week, but it's Chargers, 11.1% rostered. Gets to play a team that still doesn't know who their quarterback's going to be. I don't know. You don't know. Neither does the coach at this point, but it's Patriots. Just saw them struggle to put up 7 points against the Giants.
Does it matter? Does it really matter?
But the Patriots the past 2 weeks, this last week had the Giants. They're currently 8th in defenses right now, with 12 fantasy points on this week. And the week before had the Colts, who finished with at second on the week with 11 fantasy points. So the Chargers can match that. I would feel pretty good. Past 2 weeks for the Chargers, they've put up 2 and 1 fantasy points versus the Packers and the Ravens. Really frustrating, but if they can, I mean, the fact that they were even positive versus the Ravens is kind of a surprise to me, but they did it. And if they can do it again against a team that really doesn't have anything, and I'm very curious to see how this ends up working, but they can turn them over and get after their quarterback. It should be a pretty easy matchup for you to have a safe play at the Chargers. So be interesting to see.
No, that's good. Yeah, just 2 real quick for you. Falcons play the Jets in week 13, and then the Jags. I don't know. Well, I'm sure the Falcons are pretty widely available, but the Jags, I don't know. Maybe you drop because they play the Texans, but they get the Bengals with their backup quarterback there. So Browning. So yeah, just to target those backup quarterbacks for sure.
Yep. And with that, I guess here's Bobby coming in here. Currently have the Broncos D, but looking to stream Tampa's D versus the Panthers. Would it be a bad idea to drop the Broncos D? I mean, they're just playing so well. It's kind of tough to drop them right now. I'd prefer to drop somebody else, but I mean, they have not horrible matchups the rest of the way either.
They get Texans, Chargers, Lions. I don't love those 3, so I'm fine with that. And then maybe trying to, if you make it that far, pick up the Broncos again when they play the Patriots on Christmas Eve. So I'm fine with it, just because. I mean, if you're 8-4 and going to make the playoffs, and you just want to see if are they really a good defense, and that's fine. And if you lose, it's not a big deal. But I'm fine with picking up and just kind of streaming Tampa this week.
Yeah, it's at that point where I'm kind of looking to, even if you need to, plan for your playoffs with 2 defenses.
Yeah.
We're at that point. So don't absolutely love, like you said, I'm fine with the Broncos against the Chiefs. They're really not moving the ball very well. They looked a little better this week, but it took them a half to figure that out. And that was against a Raiders D who is okay, and I think they're kind of motivated right now because they've lost the head coach. So feel like they're ready to move. But it's interesting to see how that'll work out. I think if they're available, if Tampa's clearly available, you're looking at like the Saints. I like Dolphins still. Don't love their matchup this week, but I still think I'm rolling them out this week. But those are 2 defenses that I really love rest of the way. The Chiefs are available. They were probably picked up though because of the matchup this week against Raiders. But they might be dropped because it was just not an ideal situation for them. But Chiefs are still have a pretty good matchup rest of the way. But it'll be interesting to see how this goes. Man, we really went long today. I don't know how that happened. I think I got derailed early, huh?
Yeah, a little bit, but yeah, we got the game starting up, so
yeah.
We'll see. Right. I need less than 17 points from DJ Moore to advance in this tournament playoff thing I'm in. So we'll see how it goes.
That seems doable. It'll be interesting to see how tonight's game goes. I'm really hoping for. This is going to be probably my biggest week. I wish I would have probably started Trevor Lawrence, but if Dobbs can match that, I'll feel pretty happy with my team this week. So, and I'll like the 1-2 punch of Trevor Lawrence and Dobbs rest of the season. So, all right, we'll get out of here. I hope you all have a good night tonight. Enjoy. Get ready for week 13. Ooh, it's going to be interesting. There's some good games this week. But with that, remember, as always, to keep up the nonsense.